I would like just to go through what it's all about according to this topic, and what was happened before. This is about space flight, commercial space flight, which I have involved in at DCA when I was at DCA in 2004, 2003. I can't really remember the exact date. So let me just show you some of the, I will share some. Let me share screen. So it was, I can't recall really the date, but this is it was in the news. It was around this time. In 2004, there was news published says that Malaysia will be first Asian country to operate space tourism center by 2010. And if planned to build multi-million ringgit space facility in Perak, takes off. It was a British Bristol Space Plane Limited came to Malaysia and also came to see DC at that time to throw the idea of operating space plane for the space tourism. So myself and Dato' Azharuddin was my boss, Dato' Azharuddin. We study the, you can see the slide, right? Is slide, can you see the slide? So, okay, we make a presentation and discuss about this issue, and we clearly put it to him, to the company, our role, which is DCA is to protect public safety of any aviation activities. So because they are operating from civil airspace, going into space, so it's still a domain within the Civil Aviation Authority. So what we do in order to achieve that public safety, we need to approve flight vehicle design, issue awareness certificate of flight vehicle. After we found the vehicle is designed, maintain the design standards. Then we maintain according to the maintenance program. We license the flight crew, license the maintenance personnel, license the aerodrome. In the case if we do have commercial space flight, we will license the spaceport. I mean, that's what we had in mind following the activity in the US. So licensing and maintenance program, maintenance organizations control airspace. So those are within the Malaysian Civil Aviation Regulation, supposed to be. However, at that time, Malaysian Civil Aviation Regulation does not cover space flight. However, any civil flight prior entering, leaving the space regulated by supposed to be Civil Aviation Authority, because it's involved to protect the public safety, to protect other aircraft, to protect the people on the ground. So should be still within the domain of the Department of Aviation. That was what we have put forward to this Bristol space plane at that time when he came to see us to discuss about this space tourism. So what we had at that time, okay, another issue that we are concerned is environment, noise and emission. That is what is always the issue with aeroplane. And then we also study after when he came to see us. So we did a few study, and we start the benchmark is the United States, the FAA, the USA, which is FAA has created a commercial space transportation unit, and also there is a US Space Transportation Policy 2004, just within the same time that they came to see us. And then someone is waiting, hold on. Where to get this? Okay, hold on. Then there is a national legislation in the US, Commercial Space Launch Amendment Act 2004, Commercial Space Act 1998, Commercial Space Transportation Competitiveness Act 2000. And also in the world at that time, what is this? Okay, hold on, hold on. Someone is coming in. How to let okay. So there is a treaty on the principle of governing the activities of state in the exploration and use of outer space, including the moon and other celestial bodies, Convention of International Liability of Damage Caused by Space Object 72, and Convention of Registration of Object Launched in Outer Space 1976. So this international convention is already there in the 60s and 70s, and FAA has started having the policy and also established commercial space transport AST in around 2000, 2004. So that is how that was what we have discussed. Then what we explain on our gaps, we don't have those in our civil aviation regulation. So we say that we may look at the US as our benchmarking because they already has established the commercial space transportation. This was in 2004, 2003 when the company came to see us. So we made a conclusion at the end of the meeting. Space tourism can be a lucrative business. We realized that. Malaysia need to establish rule and regulation for the space flight operation, or else we cannot have that kind of flight. The success of space tourism in Malaysia will hinge on the ability of adequate rules and regulations. The industry is required to lobby the government to develop rules and regulations for the space flight, which is the key factor in space tourism. DCA should be committed in training the staff for these activities to ensure effective oversight of the established rule and regulations. So that was the conclusion at the end of the meeting with the Bristol space plane. So, and then you can say almost 10 years, 20 years later, 18 years later, you can see here Malaysia Space Board Act 2022 regulate the country space related activity. So this news, Putrajaya, February 9, 2022, Malaysia Space Board gazetted last January 2005, January 25. will be used to regulate space established the Malaysian Space Board. So Malaysian Space Board established to regulate space-related activity according to MOSTI. MOSTI in a statement today said Malaysian Space Board Bill was passed by Dewan Negara December 9 last year in 2021 and assented by the Tuan Agong in the last 19 January 2025. Okay, so the act is Malaysian Space Board Act 2022. So it's new. It's what, 2 years, 3 years, now the third years. And later I'll explain to what are the content. I do not want to elaborate too much on it. I just want to highlight that we have such ACTA now in Malaysia about the space. So I believe it will be a catalyst for the development of space business in Malaysia. There was many discussion about this space activity with the ICAO, International Civil Aviation Organizations. Later I may share this. But let's look at what we are talking about. We're talking about activity of space. What could it be? Okay, it could be space launch. This is concept launch from the launch pad, and then separation, going into orbit, orbiting, and descending. So this is one of the typical space flight. And this used to be with the military all over the world. This now is used to be handled by the military. Until recently, this space flight activity become civil. That's why the FAA are responsible now to do launch for the civil space. We may have this kind. This is space shuttle. Space shuttle used to be, it was under NASA, still under military activities. So I think the shuttle program also has been cancelled. And we may have launch. They call it air launch. So this is what the British space plane has been thinking, operating from Ipoh Airport and launch the space vehicle at altitude, and then the spacecraft continue flying into the orbit. Then also we have this. We have seen this. This is a flight to experience the edge of the space, to experience the weightlessness, and this is also has been done in the US. It was a competition before, and I think it was what, I can't remember who won it, but it was a competition to go to the edge of the space and also to feel the space, experience the weightlessness. Space tourism was talking about flying from point to point. It was Cik Nurul from USAS was the pioneer on this one. He are planning to operate from Puerto Rico to somewhere in Sabah. So it was his plan. However, I think he's still working on it for several years. He actually established the space tourism group in Malaysia. But he well known internationally. He used to work for a space company in Italy. Now he's worked for the USA. So I think we can get more on this from him if you want. So this is space tourism. Meaning that you fly into space, go into orbiting, sub-orbiting, and descend to another country in just a few hours to cut down the travel time. Okay, so this is another re-entry. Here's another problem. We have re-entry here. There's so many ways to re-enter. Some go to the sea, some go to like the Elon Musk rocket. So that is so this activity in space, which we may have. This is a re-entry process. This is all from internet, and the re-entry trajectory. So that's about it. So that is what we're talking about. In general, okay, before we never dream of this until we got this regulation in place. And also was a lot of discussion, if you are studying this space, there are a lot of discussion at IQ level of what about space activity here. For example, in the meeting 2023, 11 North America, Central American, Caribbean directors of civil aviation meeting, they talk about IQ rules in space integration of space activity into airspace system, because it has to go through the airspace system to go into space. So, and IQ urge, okay, to deal with this integration. This is presented by the United States. This is a detail here. I will share this later. Then also is a meeting in 2024, re-entry of space object affecting international air navigation. So when you have space object entering the airspace, civil airspace for flight, and then that could have effect on the aircraft safety. It was a discussion, legal committee meeting, 39 session, June 2024. It was just a year ago. And also 2015 was a discussion on a commercial space flight presented to the Secretariat of RQO, Legal Committee, 36 session. Commercial space flight, subwater flight is subject to civil aviation law. So it was what been addressed at RQO to address that. This commercial space flight should be in the civil aviation law. And then it was in February 2023 was the remark by General International Aviation Organization, the joint workshop on the risk to airplane in flight from entering space debris, hosted by Outer Space Institute, United States of British Columbia. The issue here on 17 February 2023. Okay, this discussion is on the risk of aeroplane from re-entering space debris. I can't remember the date, but okay, 1996, sorry, long before, Boeing 767 was hit by space debris while flying at 30,000 feet, nearing catastrophic failure. So luckily the windshield was not shattered, but it was hit by the space debris. So it means that that is how critical when we have this space flight, it can affect our civil aircraft. Okay, so then we do have a meeting on the suborbital access to space regulation and spaceport development in Italy. Presented by Italy, Italy presented that Civil Aviation Authority has developed, Italy presented that the Civil Aviation Authority has developed the legislation framework for suborbital access to space and spaceport in Italy. So I think advanced at that time. It was in 2022. So, and also a meeting is higher airspace operation is 26 July 2022. It was a meeting regarding airspace safety and navigation standardization, high airspace operation. So what does it mean by high airspace operation, where they are? For example, we do have now high altitude platform hubs system, which is a blimps flying at very high altitude. So where are these hubs situated? Are they in the region of the high operation, high airspace operation? So this is what we are discussing today. This is what the problem we have today, problem statement of this discussion. Okay, so what I will show you next is the regulation itself. We will go through it line by line, page by page, and we only focus on the safety. And we try to look at how we how we can compare with this as a airworthiness group, and how, I mean, the most important thing now is airworthiness. And for other vehicle, for civil aircraft, we do control airworthiness from design, manufacturing, operation, maintenance, management of the aircraft airworthiness, training. So those are the ecosystem. So can we emulate that? Can we follow that? That is something that we can think of. That also can be opportunity for us to do the business, because there are many discussion, especially in the US, is about the space worthiness. Space worthiness is the airworthiness of the spacecraft. You can see in US they are flying people from into and out of the ISS, and where they carry passengers. So if you consider civil operations, it's a business, civil business, then you have to have compliant to this space worthiness. Even though not civil, but they are designing to that concept. Only become civil, the more concerned more on the ability as far as suing each other, and also the insurance. Yeah, let's me open up the ACTA. So also another thing I will share with you is this how the FAA address. Stop presenting and presenting now. Okay. So FAA, they do have this, we call it, they call it as, what is it? I got stuck somewhere here. Okay, they call it Office of Commercial Space Transport, which issuing license for the space launch, spaceport, space vehicle re-entry. So this activity of space within the space, within the space to space, and this is under the IQO, under the FAA AST. Okay. So there also Commercial Space Launch Act 1984 here. So that is how FAA is handling it. Then we have, okay, let's go straight to this ACTA. So you may, this is not really, it's more about discussion, is about looking at what can be the opportunity, what would be opportunity for us in these situations, in this ACTA. And we are expert in this. I believe if you look at the ACTA, you may see that it's too small. Let me make it bigger. Okay. So you will see here, Law of Malaysia, Act 834, Malaysian Spaceport Act 2022. For our information, for everyone information, ACTA is the highest level of legislation, because ACTA was established in Parliament and regulation were established at minister level. So we just look at this ACTA, and we don't focus on regulation, because we need to see how things were started. It started here in ACTA 834, Malaysian Spaceport Act 2022. Anyone can draw a question if you just ask or give a point of view. Law of Malaysia, ACTA 834, Malaysian Spaceport, Arrangement of Section Part 1, Preliminary. So what we have in ACTA, like our Civil Aviation Act, all the number here is sections. If we talk about MCA, Malaysia Civil Aviation Regulation, the number is regulation. Regulation 21, Regulation 25. But here for the ACTA, like Civil Aviation Act, is section here. This number is section. You got section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4, act to be read together with other law. We go into it later. So it's not standing alone, must be read, to be read together with other laws. And also part 2, Malaysian Space Board. Malaysian Space Board, establishment of the board, function of the board, temporary exercise of function of the chairman of the board, executive secretary to the board, meeting of the boards. Board may invite others to the meeting. Board may establish committees, delegation of function of the board, direction of the ministers, appoint of space regulators. So maybe there is a job opening, you maybe apply to be a space regulators. If you qualify, you could be part of this space board. Space regulators. Part 3, there is prohibitions, licensing requirement. Part 4, license requirement, licensing requirement, launch permit requirement. I just explained earlier. Launch certificate requirement, application for license, additional document of information, grant of license, grant of launch permit, grant of launch certificate, condition of license, additional condition of license, duration of the license, additional offense, relation, condition of license, renewal of license, surrender of license, transfer or assignment of license, suspension, revocation of license, publication, suspension, revocation of license, appeal, review of license, launch safety officer. So the license here is about what? There's a permit. Okay. Launch permit. This is a term here. Permit, certificate, and license. As we go through, we may see this permit, certificate, and license. So if we can equivalent to, we may equate to our civil aviation industry. They almost, to me, as I went through it, it's almost identical in some aspect. Then we do have registration of space board, space object, registration of space object, notification of changes in relation to space object, registration of space object, register space object. So can we say this is aircraft, registration of aircraft, register of aircraft? Space object could be what? Launch vehicle, could be the thing that you carry on board, which become, which will be flying in the orbit. So the detail, I think, still can be discussed, will be discussed later. But for me, for us to understand some of this irrationality and some of this also will affect our civil aircraft. Liability, absolute obligation to indemnity of government, other offense, discovery of space object, personnel or spacecraft, tampering with space object. Incident and accident, notification of incident, appointment of investigator, safe custody of space object, license deemed suspended in the event of accident. So this is almost like Annex 13 that we have at the moment. Enforcement, authorization, a public officer, authority card, power of investigation, search and seizure with warrant, search and seizure with a warrant, list of seized space object, cost of holding seized space object, release of space object, fortified of the seized object, property, access to the computer data, no cost or damage arising from seizure to be recoverable. And then power to require attendance of person acquitting of the case, examination of person acquitting of the case, admissible statement in the evidence, that is the power of obstruction, you don't obstruct. And then part 10. Protection against suit and legal proceeding, prosecution, service document, attempt, abetment, liability of director, body of corporate, liability of person for act, employee, component offences, exemption, regulation, transmitter, provision. So those are the regulations. So let's just go to most important one. I mean the one that we can relate to us, may relate to us, or we can relate or something also we can explore to be our future employment or business. Okay, some of it I will skip. Space. How do we define space? Space means a void extending from 100 kilometers above sea level. So if you are talking about 100 kilometers above sea level, that is a space in the context of the regulations. Then incidents, accident, I think we are familiar with that, but in related to space. Now look at launch facility. Mean any launch pad, spaceport, sea platform, other structure or ship, aircraft, other conveyance from which space object may be launched into space, including any equipment installation at the launch pad, spaceport, sea platform, other structure, or the ship, aircraft, or other conveyance which are necessary to launch the space object into space. So that is launch facility, and you have to issue permit, license or permit, certificate for the launch facility. Later we look at the alpha. Damage, I think boats. License mean license granted by Part 4. Space object, okay, this I think space object mean a spacecraft, launch vehicle, including component part of spacecraft and launch vehicle. Imagine that we are using a 747 as a launch vehicle. So now we are going into the aircraft airworthiness. Do we need the aircraft to be airworthy for you to operate the space vehicle? I mean the launch platform, aircraft as a launch platform. So that is opening another discussion on legislation. So how we consider that? I have been approached by someone who actually bring to me an STC for the 0G flight. It was a very comprehensive STC for 0G flight. Means that if you are flying 0G flight is experience of weightlessness. They fly, they climb and they dive. So you'll be flying and then you'll be floating in the cabin. So this is a complete STC. I think a fair STC on this. So means that we may encounter, I mean, we are from airworthiness, we are from aircraft people, we may get that situation where you need to, for engineer to design or to install, CAMO also to look at this airworthiness of this STC, and licensed personnel maintenance have to approve that STC when they've been embodied. So that's why I was motivated to explain this to you, because it may also be part of our activity in the future. Obviously, if the STC being installed in our aircraft, then the DOA, the 145, the licensed personnel, the training have to be involved. Otherwise, you cannot get that on board of the aircraft. So, authorized officer, in this case, I don't want to get into that. A launch safety officer appointed under 35, we go into that. Permanent resident, chairman, space regulator, public officer appointed under 14, we look into that. Launch service provider, mean a person who provides services from launch. So we have now go back to launch facility, okay, launch facility, and now we do have term of launch service provider. So what does that mean? You must have a launch facility, launch pad, and who provide the service? Who do the launch will be the service provider to provide the launch service. You may have the facility. I would say the launch facility could be an aerodrome, but service provider could be the airlines. That is how I would like to equate it. If someone have other thinking about that, feel free, we can discuss, but that is my thinking based on reading this acta. Okay, investigator, launch certificate. To launch, we need certificates. Take note, huh? To launch, we need certificate, mean that you have a spacecraft, you want to launch a spacecraft, you need to have launch certificate. And then also we need to have launch permit. What does it mean? Later we'll look into that. So we have certificate, we have permit. So launch certificate, launch permit. And then we have also, earlier we talked about the space facility, launch facility. Okay. So let's look, let's keep the term and we will come to it later. Okay, territorial scope of the space of this act, I do not want to go into that elaboration. I just want to focus on this certificate permit. Okay, before that, let me just say, okay, for the purpose of this section, offense committed against any citizen of Malaysia. Okay, this any property located outside Malaysia belonging to or operated or controlled by it, the whole in part, the government or government of state in Malaysia, including diplomatic consular. So this is the definition of what Malaysia, or what is the, how this law is be acted to. Okay, okay, this is another important thing. This act shall be read together with any other written law related to space activity, including written law related to civil aviation, communication, multimedia, strategic trade provision of this act, in addition to not derogation of provision. So mean that it's very clear that we in civil aviation are also related to this ACTA. This is also another motivation why I introduced this, because we are in the civil aviation, whether you like it or not, so we have to understand this ACTA, okay, because including written law related to civil aviation. So mean the Civil Aviation Act to be read together by this, whenever it's necessary. Okay, it's another part 412 here. I think we need to be, I do not want to really go into the 412, but I would like to say it's about civil aviation here, 41. Establish of the board, that is the Malaysia Space Board, and I function of the board, leave it aside first, leave it aside. Temporary exercise function of the chairman, but you can read through. You may be maybe there's opening. You may apply for it. I'm not sure. Okay, this is a job opportunity already. I mean, that should be an opportunity for anyone. Executive secretary of the board, we have this meeting in the board. How many meeting, and at least once a year. And board may invite others to the meeting. Maybe it's something related to civil space. I do not know. Board may establish committee. You may be in part of the committee as a civil aviation, because whatever it is, the space vehicle will go through civil space. Delegation and function of the board. Direction of the minister. So this is minister directive, similar to what we have Civil Aviation Act. Appointment of space regulator. So the space regulator is perform function and duties imposed and exercise the power conferred over him under this act. So this act should be run by space regulator. Prohibition for peaceful purpose. So this is for civil, not for war. So we cannot shall place, install, launch, operate any weapon of mass destruction, carry out any testing of weapon, establish military base, conduct any activity which affects security, safety, conduct activity which may cause harmful determination of space aversion to the environment. So any person contravenes into this fine is what, 50 million ringgit, which is ours is what, 500,000. Imprisonment for the term not exceeding 30 years. Okay, 50 million ringgit and 30 years for both. So please, very, very careful about this act, because it's very heavy fine and also very long term of imprisonment. Like what we have of when such a person is a body or corporate, to fine not exceeding 100 million. Okay. So that's why I'm motivated to show this to you all because I don't want one of my friend get into this for some reason. Okay. Okay, license. Okay, we just talk about license. Licensing requirement, any person intended to build or manufacture any space object. Build or manufacture. Okay. Own or operate any facility for integration or testing of space object. Own or operate any launch facility. You must have license. Okay. License.
Untuk yang license requirement ni, is it together with component manufacturer?
That is not really there yet, I think. But reading this, building or manufacture any
Any
space
space
object.
object, yes.
So we build, we manufacture. We put together a rocket, for example, and they put a satellite in the rocket. So we are building and manufacture. Building and manufacture could be you just building the space solid rocket booster. So it is gray, but I think as far as our thought about airworthiness, I think they inclusive all to me.
Okay.
That's why I said we need to be careful because someone asks you to say design a solid rocket booster. Suddenly you just do it. And then, okay. Okay, own or operate any facility, integration or testing of any space object. Own, operate any facility for integration or testing. For example, if you look at anyone been to Cape Canaveral, there they assemble the solid rocket booster, they put the shuttle, put them together. So that is assembly. Integration, that's integration.
Ini so, roket buat belakang rumah.
Itu tak boleh lah. Jadi kalau act ni kena mahal banyak tu. Own, operate, launch facility. Kalau kena ni apa? 50 juta. Should apply for license. So we should have license. Because I know, I think we have heard the story where some company in Malaysia been, the GM or MD was apprehended because he happened to manufacture part of nuclear component.
Yes, component. I remember.
You remember. So mean that unnecessarily you get into that. So by showing this, I think you will now be more aware if you're build, manufacture, any space object. We are professional here. Maybe someone comes to say you, Cik, I want you to build this part, that part. And then you build. That we can get into that trouble.
Saya mana tahu.
Okay. Any person who failed to comply with subsection 1 commit an offence, ensure on conviction be liable. Okay, if such person is individual, to fine not exceeding 15 million ringgit, to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 10 years or both. When such person is a body, a company, to fine not exceeding 30 million ringgit. Okay. So what is be fined? Build, manufacture, project, own, operate facility for integration and testing, and own or operate any launch facility. Okay. And then launch permit requirement. Okay. The launch permit. You are launch vehicle. Any launch service provider who intended to launch space object into space from any launch facility in Malaysia should apply for launch permit. Earlier is license, now permit. So I would say this is AOC or something like that. Any person who failed to comply with subsection will be having to 30 million ringgit or imprisonment not exceeding 10 years. So that is the penalty. Okay, now certificate. A launch certificate requirement. So this is permit. So now certificate. Any citizen of Malaysia or permanent resident who or any corporate or incorporated body established or registered in Malaysia which is an owner of space object. Owner. Intended to launch space object into space from any launch facility outside Malaysia should apply for a launch certificate.
This is AOC all over again lah.
Yes, correct, correct. So, any citizen of Malaysia or permanent resident who anybody corporate incorporated, established or registered in Malaysia, which is owner of a space
Mm.
object and intend to launch space object into space from any launch facility in or outside Malaysia. So you are the owner, you're owner of the space object, you want to launch in Malaysia or outside Malaysia, you need to have launch certificate. So we got permit, we got license, we got uh, permit, launch permit, we got launch certificate.
Yes.
Okay. Application for license. A person may apply for license, launch permit, or launch certificate to be granted to him by submitting to the board application in such manner as may prescribe. Just like we applied to CM, I think. The application under subsection 1 shall be accompanied by payment and prescribed fee. An application under this section may withdraw at any time. Additional document. The board may anytime after receipt of application under section 19 request application to give to the board within a period specific in the request of additional document. So they can ask anything. So then grant of license. This is application. Where additional document or information required under section 1 is not given by applicant within the period specified in the request or within extension of time granted by the board, the application should be deemed to be withdrawn. Okay. Grant license. Upon receipt of application, payment fee under section 9, any additional document information given, section 20, the board may consider. The application for license having regard to such requirement may be prescribed. Okay. Grant of launch license. This is grant of launch permit. Almost the same condition. Okay.
Mm.
Then okay, here is a bit more. Launch permit. Okay, we got license, we got permit. I also got confused now. Okay, launch permit. Open receipt application. Okay. While board satisfied, okay, the applicant or launch permit shall cost to be insured in respect to liability. You have to buy insurance. Respect any liability, damage or third party resulting from the launch of the space object into space into which the launch permit relates in such manner may be prescribed. So insurance. Okay, where board satisfied, okay, give you the grant launch certificate. Okay, okay, I think just standard words there. Condition of license, okay, condition license. A license, launch permit, or launch facility certificate may be granted for subject to such condition by the board pick to be imposed. Board may be revoked anytime. Okay. Maybe include condition relating to re-entry of the space object. So here we're talking about re-entry. For the purpose of launch permit and launch certificate, the condition imposed by the board member under subsection 1 may include condition relating to re-entry of the space object. So I think this is what is common because first the space object may re-enter, will re-enter. And even though we orbiting the Earth, but may re-enter. In fact, the solid rocket booster may also crash back into the Earth.
Mm.
Then this still penalty if you are not following that condition. Okay, any additional condition? Then with duration of license. So launch license, launch permit, launch certificate shall specify duration of license, launch permit. So this is given by the board. Additional offense. Okay. Additional offense, any person contravening to any condition of the license, launch permit, or launch certificate imposed by the board, or any other condition of license, launch permit, launch certificate imposed by the board. Section 25. Cause loss of life, commit an offense should be in commission reliable. Okay, cause loss of life. Cause injury, impairment to health. This condition. Cause or loss or damage to property. Okay, so you loss of life, injury, loss of damaged property, all those are related to the additional offense. Renewal certificate, renew from time to time. Surrender your license, you can surrender the license. And transfer examiner license should not be transferred like we have also in civil. We don't transfer license, permit, approval. And suspension revocation, you don't comply, obviously, will be revoked. Publications, suspension revocation. So where the suspension revocation of launch permit, launch certificate takes effect, what show as soon as practical cause suspension to be published in the official website. Appeal, you can appeal. Review or license. Okay, space regulator. Someone joining. Okay, hold on. You are joining. Okay, so review or license, space regulator. I would say it is a willingness PMI, I think. Or any
Special
other,
regulator.
right? So you could be also could be a job for you later on this one. This one. Opportunity.
Kalau company tu ada lagi waktu loss of license, senang sikit nak cerita. Company tu dah tak ada. Satellite tinggal kat atas. Oh, headache.
Okay, all right. You can see still seeing the document, right? Okay, space regulator. Space regulator. So this is another job function for anyone as a space regulator. Okay. Launch safety officer, space regulator shall appoint from among the authorized officer a launch safety officer determine the compliance of launch permit holder. Okay, so there is a launch, safety officer. Okay. So what is does here for okay, launch safety officer shall have the power necessary for the performance of his function. In particular, he may inspect prior written notice launch permit holder. Space object launch facility. Hold on, it's coming. Okay. Then there is okay. Inspect prior, okay. Direct launch permit holder or any employee, agent, contractor given direction launch permit holder in relation to launch space object into space or the entry. So this is the function of the launch safety officer. I will get a copy later to you in the group of this ACTA. Okay, now registration of space object. Any citizen of Malaysia, permanent resident, a body or corporate incorporated established or registered in Malaysia, whose space object has been launched into the Earth orbit or beyond from launch facility in outside Malaysia, shall register the space object with the space regulator in such manner as may be described. So anything, so this is like aircraft registration, I believe. Almost identical to that. Yeah, okay. And then notification of changes in relation to space object, like aircraft, anything that will happen to aircraft, we also need notify. If the space object has ceased to be in operation, space object is physically destroyed, or any changes were to given the space object. So again, you don't do that, you'll be fined for 25,000 ringgit or a fine 50. Okay. Or no jail term. Individual to fine only. Register space object, register a space object. This one is registration of space object. And then register a space object, like aircraft register, the space regulator shall keep and maintain a register of space object. This one just like aircraft registration that we have now. That's why I said it could be a job opportunity for you all because in this case it's almost identical. So we know what is the content of aircraft registry. I believe it will not be much different from this register of space object. Okay. Liability, offshore liability. So launch service provider shall be absolutely liable for any damage resulting from the launch of space object from the launch facility in Malaysia. So we are absolutely responsible. Obligation to immunity of government, I do not go into that. Discovery of space object. Okay, this is another thing also we need to bear. Okay, discovery of space object and personnel of spacecraft. I also, there's a team working with the Europe, Malaysia, developing procedures of falling object. Okay, so the team is now working to develop SOP for if there is any falling object, how to deal with it. So discovery is any person who discover any object from which he has reason to believe to be space object or object which originated from space, or any person whom he has reason to believe to be a personnel or passenger of spacecraft shall notify the space regulator or any authorized officer in the discovery. Okay. And then this is penalty to it. Any person controlling subject subsection 1 commit an offence shall be on conviction liable to a fine not exceeding 5,000 ringgit, and if a company or body not to exceed 10,000. So don't simply if you find something and you suspect that is space object, immediately report them to the space regulator. No tampering, and also need to notify. Okay, this is for license, launch permit holder, launch certificate holder shall notify the space regulator of any incident accident. So this may not be related to us. But this one is important, 42, section 42. So do not, if you suspect that is a space object, do not touch, just go report and do not get involved into any of, don't mess around with it. Okay, appointment of the investigator, that is, okay, the condition. So the minister shall appoint in writing, so just like our Bureau Siasatan Kemalangan Udara or our AIB or our aircraft accident investigation, that appointment should be from the minister. Safe custody of the object, that is a responsibility of space regulator to keep the object safe. License is suspended in the event of accident. Some of these I just browsed through. I will focus more which is may relate to us as people working on the aircraft, because the law has said they read together with civil aviation law. So we are in the civil aviation law. Authorization to public officer, authority card, power of investigation is almost annex 13 clause, almost the same. Seizure, search and seizure with warrant. Again, we do have without warrant, we may get into that. List of seized space object, cost holding the space object due to government. Release seizure space object, just similar to our aircraft accident, 45. And then we have property, access to computers data, no cost of damage, power to require attendance of person equated with the case, so they have power to call you, examination of person equated with the case. Admissible, okay. Except provided in this section, no statement made by any person to authorized officer in the course of investigation may understand should be used in evidence. Okay, so it's similar to the aircraft accident investigation. Additional power, spirited obstruction, you don't obstruct them. Protection against suit and legal proceeding, no action, suit, prosecution, other proceedings should be brought, institute or maintained to any court against the member of the board. So that's very clear here. I don't think we have that kind of clarity in our Annex 13. Prosecution, service of documents. Attempt abatement, liability of director, corporate body, liability of person for this or the employee, compounding offences. And then exemption regulations. Okay, regulation. The minister may make such regulation as may he expedient the necessary for better carrying out this act. I can't see it yet, but this is similar to what we have at the annex of the Civil Aviation Act, Section 3, where the minister write law to comply with annex, to comply with the Chicago Convention. So this is quite similar to Civil Aviation Act, Section 3. So minister may make such regulation. Similar word is used in our Civil Aviation Act, Section 3. Okay, so I think this is what I have introduced to you. So hopefully what my concern is, that is to read together with civil aviation. So we know what Civil Aviation Act, we know what Civil Aviation Regulation, and now we should be aware of the such thing which may relate to us either directly or indirectly. So I'll pass this document to you all in the group for you to review. And I also pass some of the slides to you for you all to look at it. So hopefully it will be benefit you in your career, or for some who are interested to join, it could be something you may think you can go into as a space regulator. Okay, I think we only have past that. So any questions? If no question, we can end the session. It is recorded. Permit me to put it in YouTube for the other members to view it. In future, I may try to cover a few other things. For example, maybe electric aircraft is something hot now. And we also heard one other company is now also looking for hybrid aircraft. So I will touch on that possibly, just to look at the Part 21 initial readiness of the electric aircraft. So could be one of my talk in future. So thank you for joining. If any questions, please, if you want to ask me, just put in the group. So anything I will try to answer as best as I can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you, Prof.
Welcome. Thank you.